The dropout techies, Jubin Varghese and Ameya Gadiwan, left their mechatronics engineering degrees midway in their final year to start a venture of their own, Gegadyne Energy, with a vision to make India the manufacturing hub of EV batteries. As days progressed and the startup evolved, a lot many laurels got added to their palette. And by the year 2019, the two techies found themselves in Forbes Asia and India 30 under 30. In this episode of D2C Chronicles, Dare2Compete proudly welcomes Jubin Varghese, co-founder Gigadyne Energy, for a talk on the changing landscape of the automobile sector. Hi Zubin, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a privilege to have you here with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Firstly, thanks for having me on the show, right? I hope you all are safe and sound during this uncertain time. Yes, the lockdown has been difficult, like for me too as well, but still alive, still hell and hearty and all that's counts.
Definitely. It has been a difficult time for all of us, and we are keeping safe. Fortunately, we're all at our places. Let's hop on to an important question, Zubin. We know that Gigadyne Energy is solving an important problem of electric vehicles and the batteries of electric vehicles. I would first like to know about where this idea developed and how did this entire thought process develop? Where did you think that, okay, maybe we should start working on electric vehicle batteries and not something else?
So, Gigadyne was founded with the goal to bring mass electric transportation to the mass market, and to do that, we have to improve the battery tech dramatically, right? Rather than taking an incremental approach, right? So, it goes back to 2014, right? My co-founder, Mr. Ameya Gadiwan. So we were batchmates during our first year of engineering, and we were just ideating on some cool projects to work for a final year project, right? So we came up with this, call it a naivety of youth. We came up with this idea that why don't both of us potentially work on an electric vehicle and then kind of build a business around it, right? So it would have solved two problems, that it would ensure that we have a project for a final year and we get to work on something that we could make some dollars in the long term, right? So we did manage to build an electric vehicle, but then we soon realized that what is an electric vehicle? It's just a battery pack on four wheels, right? You could have all the gizmos of the world inside an electric vehicle. You could have the best of best air filters, autopilot, etc. But in a country like India, right, where there are no road signage, visible road signages, there's no traffic, right? You could have a cow walk in the middle of you and the car could hit the cow, right? That's the end of the autopilot and that's the end of autonomous vehicle in India, right? So we started asking people. So we ran this questionnaire. Again, since we were just too young to understand how does the entire business work, right? We were what, 18, 19, something at that point in time. We started talking to people who were the early adopters of electric vehicle, right? We started asking them what took you to buy the electric vehicle, right? So a lot of people were like, the early adopters, the climate changers who believe that, they should do their bit for and leave a better world for the future, right? A lot of the other people actually bought electric vehicles from a very economical stand perspective, right? And that's what triggered us, right? Because people actually started thinking that if I have an electric vehicle, I'm able to reduce my overall running cost, right? The unit economics. And we started breaking down, from a drill down approach, right? What are the three things which is required to enable the entire hockey stick movement in terms of mass adoption of electric vehicles, right? So we started looking at what do an OEM do today, right? Why can't a Mahindra or a Tata or anybody for that matter of fact build an alternative to Tesla? So the answer is very simple, right? It's this typical, if you remember back in the days, Maruti used to run this ad, like, kitna hour, kitna mileage deti hai, kitna kilometer chalti hai, right? Or the ad where the kid says, ki karo papa, petrol khatam hi nahi hoga, right? So we Indians are obsessed with value, right? And it's the three motto that even I go back and tell my employees, sasta, tikau, sundar. If it's sasta, it has to tick out, it has to look good, right? So there's this beautiful line with Mr. Rajiv Bajaj once said that, if you are able to get the European design with the Japanese technology and the Indian versatility in terms of, so the German versatility in terms of build, you can capture the entire world, right? So that's what another anecdote is, sasta tikau sundar, like people say in India, right? So we started understanding what can we do to make sure people actually buy electric vehicles. We understood, electric vehicle costs twice the price of any normal vehicle on road, right? Definitely, we don't want to build a product which is for the niche, right? Then we started understanding why does an electric vehicle cost this expensive, right? It's because the 40% of the cost of the electric vehicle is the battery pack itself, right? You have a lot of startups in India jumping into the EV bandwagon without understanding that, Indians do not need another electric vehicle. What Indians need is an affordable electric vehicle that can replace a petrol or diesel car. So that's what when we started working at, right? Why using, if you look at the average battery pack size across the world, right? Globally, you have batteries which are as high as 40 to 50, 60 kilowatt, on an average 40 kilowatt per pack, right? In India, you have packs which are 20, 30, 25, different sizes per pack. Why is this being done? Because you're trying to reduce the overall cost of the vehicle, right? What is the other way that you can ensure higher efficiency in terms of making sure that per charge I get longer efficiency when I charge my vehicle with respect to electric vehicles, right? So what the OEMs are doing, they're trying to stack more and more batteries so that the number of times I need to charge my vehicle reduce drastically. Second option is you can swap your batteries. We at Gegadyne Energy are not a big believer of swapping as a technology. We believe swapping can work more from a public transportation perspective. You can have something like a state from function using a particular type of EV bus, and then the bus can come to a depot and swap. So that's more like a hub and spoke model, right? That's not the market we're targeting. We're targeting more for the mass market. The daily customer, the last line micro mobility, the you and me, the logistics, the battery energy storage systems. These are the prime market that we were trying to target, right? So we understood that there are two ways you can give the same experience that you get in terms of filling up a petrol or a diesel vehicle. 15 minutes is a psychological barrier. If I go to a petrol pump, I have 15 minutes to fill up my vehicle, right? So either I can go and build a really cool, fast swapping mechanism, which costs multiple crores in terms of building a robotic arm. And then there's another challenge that every OEM in the world needs to have the same battery pack, same vehicle design that loses the competitive edge of each of these manufacturers, which is a tough nut to crack. Or you can fundamentally redesign a battery technology, right? Build something which charges within 15 minutes. So the psyche of a customer in terms of adoption of electric vehicle loses, right? You don't have to convince a customer to buy electric vehicle. It's there out there. A customer can understand if I have to only spend 15 minutes to charge my vehicle, the experience is the same. So that's the first thing that we targeted. The second thing is with respect to TCO. That's the total cost of ownership. Now, why does TCO matter to a lot, right? The cost that you pay while you're buying a car is not the actual cost of ownership of the car, right? The service charges, the fuel bills, the insurance, everything gets added to the TCO bit of it, right? Now, when you talk about electric vehicle already have a lower TCO compared to a petrol diesel car. Now, how do you entice it further? How do you make the customer want to buy this vehicle, right? So the other way to look at this would be to increase the life cycle of the battery. Today, when you look, we go to Delhi, especially the north of India, where e-rickshaw is big, right? All the e-rickshaw walas will say that one of the biggest problems that they have to replace the battery every 1.5 years. That's 40% of the cost of the vehicle, right? Now, if you have something which needs to be replaced after 1.5 years, the TCO gets impacted. So what do? We wanted to increase the life cycle of the battery, right? And the third aspect of the battery is the environmental aspect of it, right? We wanted to build a battery which is safer, which is more friendly in terms of recyclable part of it. And we also want to make sure that we want to build a technology which is independent of China, right? Why is this important? Because if you look at the larger scheme of things, right, China not only controls the battery manufacturing market, but it also controls the electric vehicle market and also controls the entire supply chain. 56% of the market is with China, right? Now, it looks exciting to set up a battery manufacturing plant back in India, and you can go back and start building something, sourcing materials from China, right? But then it would be like a mermaid situation, right? So there's this internal thing that we say, when you want the fish, you get the girl, and when you want the girl, you get the fish, right? So that's not something that you want to do, right? You want to build a technology which is built in India, because today, if you go back and speak to any international player, right, when you say it's made in India, right, people try to take it with a pinch of salt, right? Which is what we're trying to overcome. We're trying people like, look, there is talent available in India, right? You'll be surprised with the quality of scientists that you have in India, right? ISRO just did a marvelous, credible effort by launching hundreds of satellites with purely homegrown talent. You do not require expired talents to build this. So that was the goal which we started the company with. We decided, look, we have to do something from ground up. So the first thing that we did is that, are we 100% convinced with the idea, right? And the only way to make sure that you're 100% convinced with the idea is to take the biggest opportunity risk that is in front of you. That's to drop out of college, right? A word of caution: we do not encourage people to drop out of college, right? Because though it sounds cool that you can be a college dropout, the chances of success are 1 in 100, right? It's not a wise decision to. The opportunity cost is massive. We decided to do that because we were convinced with the idea. And when we dropped out of college, we didn't have anything, just the idea in our mind. We were convinced with the idea, no matter how long it takes, right? What is the downside? The hindsight of it, you don't become a graduate, right? But then if your entire goal in life is to learn, right, you can learn irrespective whether you have a degree or not, right? And the world is evolving more from a perspective of they want people who are more fundamentally educated rather than a college degree. So we decided that that is an opportunity we will take, and that's something we're ready to, because that also shows some sort of commitment to your team members that someone believes in this idea and to your potential investors. So we dropped out of college. We started looking at what can we do. We understood lithium, though, is the holy grail with respect to battery technology of the 21st century. That's something with India or any country which is trying to reduce its dependency on China cannot go back and build out. Because if you're trying to build out a lithium-based battery technology and a lithium-based infrastructure, the challenge is you will forever be dependent on China, right? And when you have a big daddy present, you know what are the areas that you can actually go back and work further. So our concept is based on something called as a multi-ion technology. Not getting into too much of nitty-gritties of it, right? In a lithium ion, you have lithium and a couple of other elements. We use carbon and derivatives of carbon as our ions, right? And the entire technology is proprietary. We've applied for patents around the technology. And what we do is that our batteries they charge faster. So that issues the first question that what will happen if my vehicles take longer to charge. If my batteries are able to charge faster, I need that much lesser number of charging stations across the spectrum, like across the city, right? Secondly, what we also do is our aim is to make sure that our batteries also last longer. So due to some inherent properties, we're able to even get the higher cycle life with respect to the batteries. And the third and the most important aspect, since we do not use cobalt, since we do not use lithium, these are not commodities but are byproducts. You need to refine them, you need to source them in a particular manner, right? They tend to get expensive. We use commodities as the raw material. We're able to also reduce the cost by 30% with respect to lithium-ion batteries. So we developed a proof of concept, right? And when the so again, all in our mind, we developed the proof of concept and then we went out to investors. We did face a lot of rejection when we ventured out. We did realize that the world is not as kind. It's not as the Facebook of the Twitters of the world, right? The world is not that kind with respect to especially in Indian innovation. But then we have a good bunch of angel investors who did take that leap of faith in us and decided to back us with respect to our seed round. We got funded, we built a team back in Bombay, right? And we were very surprised that when we started venturing out and looking out for talents, right, we did manage to get a lot of talented scientists who we think have the capability to develop the technology further. So we have a team, we have a lab back in Bombay, and we're working towards further progressing the technology, getting closer to commercialization.
Perfect. That was a quite detailed explanation of what Gegadyne Energy does, and we
Mhm.
wish you the best for all your future endeavors. But whatever you have told me, from that, two questions emerge, Zubin. Firstly, that with the entire lockdown situation and the coronavirus pandemic hovering above our heads, we have seen a surprising decline in the automobile industry. So, where do you think are you heading, or is Gigadyne heading with the electric vehicles batteries now in this current situation?
So when you look, see, it's unfair to say that the mobility space is only slowing down because of Corona pandemic, right? There are two aspects of it, right? One is that the government has mandated a BS6 norm from 1st of April, right? And like I said, Indians have this typical mentality of making sure that they earn the best value. So everybody kind of delayed the purchasing decision till 31st of March in the expectation of getting a better deal for the vehicle. So that's one aspect of it. Yes, the COVID did take a big impact in terms of sales of be it the normal vehicles or the electric vehicles, for sure, right? But we also need to understand when you're locking down the entire country, when there's uncertainty whether you're even going to survive the pandemic, right? The last thing what people want to do is buy a vehicle, right? But if you go to see as the government started unlocking the economy a bit, right? Especially in the month of May, right? You see this green shots in the automobile sector, right? I think the private vehicles is going to be a sector which is going to see an entire hockey stick movement, or if not a hockey stick movement, an entire uptick in terms of buying sphere. Because in my personal opinion, I think shared mobility will definitely take a hit with respect to COVID. Right? Everybody wants to ensure that the environment that they operate in or the vehicle that they use are 100% sanitized and unsafe of any viruses. Right? Which is why I see two sectors picking up rapidly in India. One is your second-hand or used vehicle market, because that gets more affordable for the end customer. And I also feel the entry level vehicles, because this is something that I go back and chat with my team internally. Like, there are two segments that is going to eventually emerge out of the entire COVID situation. You will have a higher end vehicle, which is for your weekend trip, for your functions, for your weddings, etc. And you'll have a daily commute vehicle, right? This could be more affordable vehicles like your Altos or the Swifts of the world, right? There again going to be a huge section of people who are only going to buy us one single vehicle. But I definitely think that COVID, if not, has actually accelerated the buying decision of people. Right? You will see it just once the country opens up much more, You'll see a lot many car buyers, especially in the used car market or the new market. And I think one of the biggest areas in terms of uptake would be your lower end of the spectrum in terms of vehicles, right, which are more reliable, which can be used on a daily basis, right? So I think, and I'm sure a lot of OEMs are focusing on these markets, but I think there will be definitely going to be uptake with respect to sales of automobiles in the near future. Another huge market that I see, right, is your last mile connectivity or micro mobility market, right? That's a market which in India is virtually untapped, right? You have these e-rickshaws, but I think some sort of innovation is definitely need of the hour over there. So if you're able to bring vehicles or something like an e-bike, right? When you say e-bike, be it your e-scooter or your e-bike, right? Which anybody can use a battery pack and charge and then drive. So I think these kind of vehicles will definitely be an interesting area to watch out for in India.
Yes, definitely. I agree with that point. I even heard about this recently when people started talking about how automobile sector, though has declined right now, is going to pick up when people will buy new vehicles because they do not want to share vehicles anymore. Like they won't prefer Ola and Uber like they used to previously. So more and more people would want to own a vehicle.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Coming to the second part of the question, Zubeen, we know that Gigadyne Energy started with a vision to make India the manufacturing hub of EV batteries, which was earlier governed by China. Now, with the rising tensions between India and China, how has this thought and this vision evolved of Gigadyne Energy?
So I think it's definitely a big tailwind for us, right, with respect to what's happening. I would not like to comment more on the geopolitical situation because it's still an emerging situation, and then it's led for the political leadership to comment on that. But in my opinion, right, whether if there is a geopolitical situation or not, what is more important that every country, especially in a country like India, right, if you look at the entire mobility market, right, after China, India is a market with huge opportunity, right? The penetration of automobiles in the market is still at the surface level. You sell what around 2 million vehicles in India on a yearly basis, and majority of them still are two wheelers, right? So I still feel this huge opportunity with respect to automobile market in India, right? Yes, the government has shown its commitment and its intent in terms of pushing electric vehicles, which is why you have the FAME 1 and the FAME 2 schemes. Definitely, there are areas of improvement with respect to both the schemes. I will not deny that. But what's more important is that the government and its scheme has set it out very clearly that the focus is to ensure that they go back and back innovative battery technology, right? Which is a key word when you look at the scheme, right? Which is one of the many reasons why they have not gone back and given an outright incentive just for buying an electric vehicle, right? Innovative battery technologies, these are the key words that the government is looking to do. What it does is that it ensures that it encourages the end customer to actually go and buy vehicles which make much more meaningful sense, right? It doesn't make sense that if you there's an incentive to just slap on lead acid batteries and then start selling electric vehicles. That's not the aim of the government. So I think the intent of government is definitely there. But with these kind of situations that's emerging, with the sentiment that's prevailing in the country, I think it's a big tailwind, be for Gegadyne or any technology which is independent of lithium or which is independent of the Chinese the entire spectrum, right? So yes, we definitely have seen a larger interest with respect to OEMs and all the channel partners in terms of uptaking of technology. In my personal opinion, right, I used to believe that 2022, 2023 is the entire moment when there'll be uptick of electric vehicles in our country. Due to the COVID virus, I think we've taken a 12 to 24 months hit with respect to the entire uptick, but I think we're still on track. I have a strong feeling by 2025, 2026, you will see a reasonable percentage of sales of vehicles in India, which will be electric. And the entire adoption is going to be in a very unique manner, right? I do not think it's going to be the four-wheelers who's going to start with the electric EVification. I think electrification is going to begin with more from the delivery fleet, right? Because that's where the unit economics matters more, right? You will have your three-wheelers, your last mile connectivity trucks, your delivery guys using different forms of EV vehicles, right? And then you'll have the two-wheelers coming in, and then eventually you'll have the four-wheelers coming in, because that also gives us time for the infrastructure to develop. So it's going to be an interesting space to watch out for in the near future.
Definitely, and we hope that these electric vehicles take the Indian market sooner. So, has Gigadyne Energy connected or associated with a few companies to sell their batteries, or is it working on its own?
So we have channel partners. Like we said, the space is a very heated space at this point of time, and everything is behind the curtain at this point of time. We work with a lot of we have a lot of channel partners. These are Indian and international in nature. The good part about the Gigadyne's technology is that we do not ask or we do not want anybody to fundamentally redesign, the entire ecosystem that's available today, right? We're just asking them to adopt a better battery chemistry, because what we're developing is something which can be used today in any of the existing battery manufacturing facility, right? So what the advantage, what it gives to the end battery manufacturer is that to adopt a technology using the existing assets that he has and create and actually develop a better battery pack at the end of the day, right? So there is immense value to be done. We are closely working with few of the largest OEMs in the country and internationally to integrate our battery packs with their existing and future product lines.
Okay, perfect. This brings me to another question, and that is that we have heard that companies like Mahindra and Mahindra, in these times of coronavirus pandemic, are working on selling ventilators, on manufacturing and selling ventilators. Do you think that this is going to be a part of their business in the coming years, post-pandemic world, or is it going to stop once the pandemic ceases to exist?
I hope it stops, because if the ventilators are still being sold, then the virus still exists in our world, right? So I hope that the entire virus eradicates from this world. That's my sincere wish, right? I think it's more from a perspective of a goodwill perspective from where they're starting manufacture, because that's the need of the hour. So if not the biggies of the world or the blue chips of the world, who else is actually going to help in such kind of situation? You can't just expect the government to work on it. So I think it's definitely a good step taken by the larger companies of the world, right? And the good part is that when this virus hit our country, it's not just the large blue chip companies that actually got together and started contributing. It was really encouraging to even see smaller startups and smaller companies doing their bit, right? Be it with the perspective of building ventilators, building face shields, building all of the other aspects. So everyone tried to do their bit in terms of making sure that the world is a better place for us to live in the near future. And right, it's encouraging for us to see, right? At the end of the day, right, when you run a business, this is the right opportunity for you to contribute to make sure that you live in a better world. So I think, guys, like answering your question, I genuinely hope there is no need for them to continue to build on any more ventilators in the near future.
Even I hope that we enter into a more empathetic world, and that this need to develop ventilators and manufacture ventilators does not exist anymore after the few years. Now, Zubeen, coming to another question here, we've seen a debate going on between the use of electric vehicles and micro mobility vehicles. And where one part of the country and one part of the world is focusing on creating electric vehicles, the other part is of the opinion that we should maybe work on creating or manufacturing micro mobility vehicles. So, what opinion do you have on this? And is there an idea, or can there be a plan where both of these can be clubbed together in the near future?
So, in my opinion, right, what is micro mobility? Micro mobility is more like a last mile mobility connectivity vehicle. Right? What is electric vehicle? Electric vehicle is a different source of, whether you can call it as a fuel for a vehicle, right? There is no reason why both of this can't coexist, right? We can talk about micro mobility. You can see what Bird did back in the US and Israel, right? There are a lot of companies which are still using e-scooters or tricycles, right? Ideal goal, the vision of the future is to have a carbon neutral when you talk about emission, right? How can that be achieved? That can only be achieved either you switch to hydrogen or you switch to electric vehicle, or you have a solar powered or renewable powered vehicle, right? Hydrogen, I still feel, in my opinion, is a distant future, because fuel cell still needs a lot of research, a lot of work, a lot of efforts in terms of building a vehicle which can be mass produced in mass and sold widely across the globe. I think in the near term, I think it's the electric vehicle that's going to be the hottest segment. Right? Like I said, I feel electrification would first begin in the last mile mobility sector, wherein when you have all of these delivery guys and all of these people who wanted to travel shorter distances, use these e-bikes or e-cycles, and then seeing on that, the entire trend will eventually catch up, right? Even when you look about the entire, payment scape or the fintech space that you see today, right? When the Paytms of the world and all of these other world, they started first being used for recharges, right? And when people understood the convenience of actually, just sitting using your phone to actually recharge a mobile phone rather than going to a shop and scratching the card, it's a hassle process, right? Like it gives you, it cocoons yourself in a very comfortable environment that, I can open my phone, just do a recharge and at the safety of my home, right? Similarly, when people understand that, I can actually get the speed, the acceleration. So let's look at it, right? If I need speed today, I need to buy a high performance vehicle, right? If I need outright power. I need to buy a high performance vehicle. We're talking about electric vehicle, right? Irrespective of the type of electric vehicle you buy, there is speed and there's acceleration available. Pay better than a petrol or diesel car, right? So I think these are the small pointers which will actually uptick the sales of electric vehicles. And then eventually, when people understand that the overall cost to run these vehicles are on the lower end, and it's much more safer in terms of environment, and it's much more convenient to use an electric vehicle, I think the adoption would be both in terms of micro mobility, last mile connectivity, as well as your daily commute.
Okay, you mentioned a very important point here, Zubin, that both of these
Mhm.
can be clubbed, and that there probably will be no issue in clubbing both of these technologies, because
Yep.
essentially both of these work on different parameters. But when we talk about the cost parameter of these vehicles, do you think that clubbing both of these technologies into one will increase the cost of these vehicles, especially when we look at micro mobility vehicles in terms of cars or smaller cars? So, do you think the technology prices will increase if we look at that way?
So I feel the only way to make EVs more accessible is either you declub the batteries from the vehicle and use energy as a commodity, as a service, as a business model, or reduce the cost of the electric vehicle batteries, right? Declubbing as a battery or energy as a commodity or a service is kind of a model which has actually not worked in a country like India, right? There are a few players who tried doing that, but then they have its own inherent challenges. So the only way to go forward is to actually go back and reduce the cost of the battery. Now, how do you reduce the cost of the battery? Either you buy battery at scale. Now, the problem is even if you buy battery at scale, it plateaus after a point in time, right? Or you locally start manufacturing batteries. If you have to locally start manufacturing battery, then you need to have a localized supply chain, right? So, in my opinion, both of this can be done, provided we're able to reduce the cost of the battery. I feel in the future, right, it is something which is ambitious today, but then how do you devour a whale? You can't devour a whale all by itself. You have to break down into smaller pieces, right? Which is why I feel the first step is to go back and the entire learning curve with respect to adoption of electric vehicles must be done in the country. And I feel that is something being done by the government authorities, and then more needs to be done, which is definitely is being done as we speak, right? But apart from that, I also think that with respect to the cost factor, with respect to a lot of other segments, it is being done. It may be at a slower pace than what we've expected, but I think this is something that can be achieved in the near future.
I'm sure, and I hope that we do find this in the near future, and we do find a good usage of electric vehicles in the near future, because obviously we are all looking at an eco-friendly vehicle. We are looking at eco-friendly vehicles in the near future. Now, Gigadyne Energy must have had a strategy in mind before for the financial year of 2020 and 2021. How has this strategy changed owing to the pandemic that is governing us right now? And what plans have you made for the upcoming years from now?
A great question, right? Like I said, at the heart, we're still an R&D company, right? So the exposure that we had with respect to COVID, and even more so that we are not dependent on China for our raw materials or supply chain, has been minimal, right? Our plan still stays in place. Our plan is to ensure that we set up a larger lab slash a pilot line, which is in process. What does this achieve us? Is achieve us to start, doing field trials of our batteries. So we'll have field trials of a battery as early as beginning of next calendar year. Our goal was to start it somewhere between the last quarter, third quarter of 2000 FY21, but that got shifted by a quarter, definitely because of COVID, right? So we will begin with a field testing of batteries with our channel partners. Again, these are the largest players in the world with respect to each of the segments. So we have a partner for energy storage, we have a partner for EVs, we have a partner for telecom, right? What it does, it helps us to gather a lot of field level data, which is important before we commercialize a battery, right? We are also looking to build up our order book, which is something that we feel that is a function of actually testing the batteries in field and evolving. So we do not do an outright sales. We do not intend to do a carpet bombing. We get a lot of requests from AV enthusiasts and current AV buyers who want to switch to a better battery. We believe that these kind of technology should not be carpet bombed. It should begin with a release control approach, understand, get data points from the set of customers who are using a battery, and then eventually go back and scale up, right? That's the approach that we have taken from day one, and that's something that we even sticking to it. So by the end of this fiscal year, you will have a lot more Gigadyne's battery being field tested at different locations across the globe.
I'm just interested in knowing that what is the ratio of people using electric vehicles right now in this moment? And we obviously know that this ratio is going to increase in the coming years. But right now, according to your observation and according to how Gigadyne is working, how many people actually are using electric vehicles?
So this is a great question, right? So this is a question which I get asked by a lot of people that why are you building something which is still at a very nascent stage, right? Why don't do something with respect to why don't you build a better SaaS platform and an analytics platform or build a BMS? Why are you building a battery technology and that too in a market which is still very nascent, right? So I go back and tell them it's a very simple question: how to evaluate a new technology, right? Can you go back and ensure that all the checklist is ticked when you evaluate a new technology? Absolutely not, right? So I think the right set of question or the right set of pointers at this point of time is not to look at the ratio at which the adoption ratio. I think it's more from the perspective that has there been an incremental increase compared to the previous years in terms of electrification, right? The answer is yes, right? The second question that we need to ask is there awareness being created with respect to buying of electric vehicles? The answer is yes. The third question is, are people willing to shell out those dollars with respect to buying of electric vehicles? The answer is yes. These are the three biggest motivators or inspiration for anybody working in electric field, right? Hyundai Kona has sold more than 200 to 80 units of their EV just within months within their launch. MG Hector had launched a EV variant of it. They sold to about 2,000 units within a few months. Right? These are indicators that people are ready to buy electric vehicles. The ratio is definitely going to be small at this point of time, and I think there's no need for us to take disheartened by that. The reason why it's going to be small is because not everybody is going to be the early adopter, right? The early adopters, irrespective of whether it's a Tesla or any technology or any product for that matter of fact, are the enthusiasts, right? The question, if you look at how many people actually used your SaaS apps or your Paytms or your Flipkarts of the world when they were just launched, the number is very minuscule, right? Like I said, the entire hockey stick movement will only happen when you have a lot more chargers in the country, a battery which is better than the existing battery, and the number of hurdles with respect to adoption of electric vehicle is reduced, right? I think, in my opinion, post this pandemic world, you'll see a lot of sales of two wheelers of EV happening because that's a market which I think is going to boom, especially your affordable two wheelers, right? The one which costs between 50 to 60 grand. I think that's a market which is going to boom, especially in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, because then it's much more easier for you to dog back to your home and charge in your bungalows and stuff compared to the urban cities. Right? Then I think once seeing and experiencing those kind of vehicles, I think it's a matter of time till you have more and more people actually buying the larger vehicles. Right? I also think another market which I think is going to boom very soon in India is that replacement market for diesel generator. Right? Today, a lot of people are still using DG sets. A lot of people still have solar power panels in their home, but they're not storing energy, which is a very inefficient way of actually using renewable energy, right? You give back to the grid, which is good, but actually you can actually have a decentralized system where you can actually store energy using your batteries. I think these are the first adopters, right? Once these things start catching up, once these things start actually picking up, you will see people being more and more convinced in terms of buying electric vehicles.
Definitely. I'm intrigued about one thing here, Zubin. Has Gigadyne Energy ever thought of creating a vehicle of its own or maybe manufacturing one, maybe? Because electric vehicles, as you speak of, consume the most part of that vehicle is what a battery is made up of. Battery consumes a major part of an electric vehicle.
So, very interesting question. Ultimately, Rick, I answered very simply for this question is that, so ultimately, if you're able to capture 40% of the value chain of a market, right, it doesn't make sense for us to build electric vehicle, right? So I always tell my investors and I tell people associated with Gegadyne, right? What is the role of a startup in terms of the entire ecosystem, right? Whether you're building a product, whether you're building a SaaS-based product or an EV product, right? We believe that a startup's role in the entire value chain is to bring technology to the market, right? Which I think is what a startup should focus on, right? When you talk about electrification, EV is the end product, right? What you need to bring is bring technology to ensure the larger players are able to produce a product, right? It would be very naive of me to go back and say, look, it's about $300 billion market in India by according to Niti Aayog by 2030. There's an independent report published over there. Let me start building hundreds of factories and capture the market, and I can go back and say, look, I'll capture only 1% of the market, and I've made good returns for my investors and for the entire base. Right? That's not what we want to do. What we want to do is we understand building a product, manufacturing a product is a different ballgame, which is why you have the OEMs of the world. You have labor issues, you have land issues, you have taxation issues. It's a very complicated world. That's not our focus, right? Our focus is to make sure we bring the technology, right? We bring the technology. It's all about synergies. It's all about partnerships. It's all about the harmony which exists between them, right? If you try to disorient that harmony which already exists, it's going to create a lot of issues for the company and also for the entire market. What you want to do is you want to build a technology, choose the right set of partners. How do you go commercial? So there are three legs to it. A, you build a better product, right? B, you ensure your product is 100% safe for the end customer, right? Even if you feel there's 1% of risk involved with, do not launch the product. That's something that we go back and live by. You want to build a better product. You want to build a product which is 100% safe, 100% certified, and then choose the right set of partners, because it's difficult to penetrate into the Indian market, right? Why is HUL the king of the entire FMCG space, right? Because of their market penetration. You can have a HUL product at a mall in South Bombay and South Delhi. You can also find an HUL product in that most remotest location, a Kirana store, right? It's the penetration. It's difficult for any startup to build that kind of penetration without time. And time is a big delta when you talk about go to market, right? When you, irrespective of what technology you're building, you only have 18 to 24 months till you have a replica in the market, right? You need to take, you need to respect that and take cognizance of the fact that is a delta which you have to capture your market, right? If you're trying to do the entire penetration by yourself, you'll take 24 months to understand what the market is, right? So leave it to the players who already have those kind of distribution. So we are never going to manufacture vehicles. We're never going to manufacture batteries by say. Our goal is not to do that. If there is an incentive in the near future, which then it's something that we could take a decision at that point in time. But as we speak, as of today, our goal is to tie up with a larger battery manufacturer who has a distribution, who has a clientele, right? And then go back and tell them, look, you have a pre-existing plant, you have a set of tools. Why don't you use a better chemistry and then get derive value not for yourself but also for the end customer, right? That's the focus that we want, and we believe that's the focus that every startup should take, right? If you are into an hardware sector or you are into a market which is high on capex, right? I think I just joke internally. I say, as long as the IR of my investor is bigger than my BMI index and I'm a hefty person, right? Everybody's happy in the cap table, right? So that's the focus we should take on. Focus on building synergies, focus on finding partners who can manufacture for you, who can get those kind of scales for you and start pushing your products through your channel partners.
Definitely. And that's a very interesting insight that you mentioned, that startups should generally focus on the technology, and they generally focus on enhancing the technology rather than getting into another set of market. Before we wind this interview up, Zubin, there's just one last question that I would like to ask you. And that is that you have been an inspiration for many young guns out there. And there are a lot many people like you who are willing to start a venture of their own right now. And what advice would you like to give to these young guns who are willing to start a venture of their own, especially in these testing times?
So my 2 cents would be, and I'm not someone who's seen a lot of ups and downs in the market. My 2 cents would be that there is no right time to start, right? So the most important aspect before you take an entrepreneurial jump is to go back and have a devil's advocate with somebody who you trust a lot, right? Pitch in your idea, convince somebody who's your biggest critic to actually get convinced with your idea, right? Unless and until those kind of validation happen, it's very difficult to actually understand the loopholes or the nitty-gritties that you need to fine-tune in your ideas, right? Which is the biggest step, right? Secondly, like I said, there is no right time to take the entrepreneurial jump, right? If you have that conviction within yourself, and if you believe that this is the next $1 billion opportunity that needs to be done, and if you believe that there is value to be added in a particular segment, right? I think one must just follow his dream, follow the heart, and start pursuing, and to make sure that they build a product. Because ultimately, especially with the H1B1 visa issue that is going on in the West, I think a lot of great techies are going to come back home. I think a lot of great talent which was supposed to be working in India will definitely come back home. That's a huge opportunity for them to build technology in India, scale things up in India, right? You see, for the matter of fact, right? India doesn't have a scarcity of talent. That's a wrong assumption that people have. People have the assumption that if you're building a technology in India, it could be a slight modification of what already exists. That's something which you need to overcome, and that's going to be only done when you have more and more companies in the world which are developing products. Right? So we believe this, be it COVID or not, obviously you will face much more difficulties when you're starting up in the environment of COVID, right? But I believe if your idea is rock solid, and if you're playing for the long term game, right, not for the short term game, if you're playing for the long term game, and you have the grit and the perseverance to make sure that you sail through, I think if a battery materials company like Gegadyne get funded in 2018, I think anybody can actually survive, and anybody can actually ride the wave and build a better product in the country.
I'm sure. And I hope that this COVID situation will come to an end and everybody will walk out of it with a lot of feathers in their hats. Thank you so much, Zubin. That was an excellent piece of advice that you shared, and I hope that this will ignite the spirit of competitiveness in the many young guns who will be looking up to you for inspiration and motivation.